right, so why don't we stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start with roll call. Peter Bellotti.
Here.
Amy Battaglia.
Here.
Josh Feldman.
I'm here.
Brian Leibel.
Here.
Kaylee McDonald.
Here.
Scott Johnson.
Here.
I'm not sure if Roman thought it was 7 o'clock, so we'll wait and see if he shows up. Marion Jason, I am here. Motion to accept roll, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Next on the agenda is our budget hearing and then the meet the candidates. So let's start with Mr. Feldman, the budget hearing.
Yep, Mr. Dinestri, if you could just share your screen.
Yep.
Morning.
Virgil Zoom, right? Or Virgil's
Bill's
Apple
Apple
TV.
TV. Okay, thank you, Mr. Genestri. This is the start of the required 2022-23 budget hearing. After we're done with the budget hearing, we'll kind of clear out up front and we'll welcome our 4 candidates for the Board of Education for Meet the Candidates Night. But Mr. Genestri, if you could hit the next slide, please. Tonight's hearing presents really the 5th look at the budget that the Board of Education has done throughout this 22-23 budget season. The budget was approved, adopted by the Board of Education on Tuesday, April the 19th, at the budget, at their voting meeting. But in a nutshell, you see on the slide there that the 22-23 proposed budget is $89,351,588. It maintains all the programming, current programming at all levels and all school configurations. We do add to staff to address some instructional needs across the district. We've added 3 special education teachers, a speech pathologist, an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and although it's not up there, a director of human resources. It maintains our annual bus purchases for the 22-23 school year. We are purchasing 3 new, or intend to purchase 3 new large 65-passenger buses, 1 small 30-passenger bus, and 1 wheelchair bus. And the proposed tax levy does fall within the New York State imposed tax cap, which means that we only need a simple majority of the voters to vote in favor of the budget for it to pass. So just in a nutshell there, the proposed budget again for the coming school year, $89,351,588. In comparison, the current year, we are at $85,923,559. It's a budget-to-budget increase of $3,428,029, or just under 4%, 3.99%. The budget does need to be presented to our public in a 3-part scenario. The administrative component of the budget provides for overall general support and management activities, including Board of Education, Superintendent's Office, curriculum and staff development, printing and publishing, and supervision and support in each of the 6 schools. Also included in this are expenses for legal services, liability and property insurance, and salaries and benefits for our administrative staff. The program budget is the instructional component that accounts for instruction and educational support for the district's 3,400 students, salaries of teachers, guidance counselors, psychologists, social workers, coaches, therapists, teacher aides, computer technicians, and related clerical support staff are included, as are their fringe benefits. Transportation, instructional computers, supplies and textbooks, special education services and expense for summer school are also included in this component. And the last component of the three-part budget is the capital component. It includes buildings and grounds salaries, equipment, vehicles, utilities, repairs, rentals, contracts, and supplies for all custodial grounds and maintenance of all district buildings. It includes judgments and claims and refund of prior year property taxes due to reassessments or town clerical errors. And it includes, the majority of it includes the debt service, principal and interest, and interfund transfers for existing capital projects. And it includes fringe benefits for the buildings and grounds folks as well. Next slide, please. Oh, Google Slides did something a little different, but that's okay. We'll work through it. Three-part budget. The total budget again is $89,351,588. The administrative component for the 22-23 school year is $7,129,972, or 8%. The program portion of the budget is $68,646,616, or 76.8%. And the capital component of the budget is $13,575,000, even, or 15.2%. You hit that next slide. There it is in bar graph form. The administrative component went up 0.2%. The instructional component went up 0.7%. And the capital component went down just about, 0.9%. If you hit the next slide, Mr. Ginestri. So on the revenue side of an $89 million budget, this is where the revenue side is funded from real property taxes at 59.7%, state aid at 29.2%, reserve and fund balances 2.8%, debt reserve 0.8%, sales tax 4.4%, and other, most notably pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, tuitions, and interest at 3.1%. Some of the revenue impacts that we've seen, for the 22-23 school year include about a $1.5 million increase in foundation aid. This is part of the governor's plan to fully fund foundation aid by the 23-24 school year. We're still underfunded foundation aid-wise by about $1.6 million, and hopefully in next year's state budget, in 23-24 state budget, we will see a continued increase in that foundation aid. We did see a $923,000 or thereabouts just decrease in building aid. Part of the middle school project did come off. We've increased our debt service usage, reserve usage by $215,000 for this next coming year to keep our debt service level, and you'll see that on the next slide. And what we've done, we've increased our projection in sales tax revenue to the tune of about $280,000. We had a projection at about $675 million. On April the 5th, we got our third quarter now payment in from the county that helped us take a more closer look at sales tax for the coming year. And we felt comfortable in updating and increasing our revenue from a sales tax perspective of $280,000 to total $3.9 million for next year. Next slide, Mr. Ginestri, please. So this is what I was talking about in terms of debt service funding. The idea is to keep that debt service fairly level so that homeowners' tax levies and tax payments don't do this, go up and down. They stay relatively flat. And then the idea is once a larger portion of the debt service comes off of our rolls, that would be an ideal time to look at doing another capital project to maintain that debt service funding. So really the majority of the middle school project from 02-04 and that time frame comes off around that 24-25 school year. So I would expect that we would put together some sort of a capital improvement project around 25, 26, somewhere in there. But you'll learn more about that when Young and Wright is here next week to talk about the results of our building condition survey. Next slide. So the proposed tax levy, which again makes up the majority of our revenue side, is $53,321,588. It is a tax levy increase of $2.216 million, or 4.34%. As I mentioned initially, it does fall within the New York State tax cap. You hear the tax cap is either 2% or the cost of living, whichever is less, and the tax cap is 2% this year, but there are exclusions to the tax cap, things most notably about debt service, capital improvement projects, and things along those lines that allows that number to get to the 4.34%. The tax cap, again, we fall below it. It would require a simple majority for the budget to pass. The tax cap for us this year at 4.34% is lower than the rate of inflation, which is at 4.7%. So this is kind of a snapshot as to what this proposed budget might have as far as an impact on tax bills for the 22-23 school year. This is really, again, just a snapshot because there's a lot of variables that we do not know yet. This is a snapshot using assessment levels for 2020, 2021, 2022. And also equalization rates are not finalized from the towns of Amherst and Tonawanda as of yet. So this is, again, using assessment values for the 21-22 school year and current present equalization rates. So $150,000 market value home for the town of Amherst on the town side, on the Amherst side, would estimate at a tax rate of $15.36 per thousand, which represents a tax bill of $2,304, or an increase of $96 from year to year. On the Tonawanda side, similar home at a tax rate of estimated tax rate of $41.19, translates into a tax bill of $2,286, or an increase of $95 from present year to next year. It's important to note that last year, you see on the side there, last year at this time, we made a recommendation, or we made an estimation rather, of a tax bill on the Amherst side of $14.53. When assessment and final assessment rules came in August, we recommended a tax rate of $14.72. On the Tonawanda side, we estimated in May of last year a tax rate of $38.99. And when tax rolls came in, we ended up at $39.48. So it is an estimation where we sit right now. We just don't know, as far as assessed values go, where we'll end up. But we do have it for those that take advantage. On the Amherst side, the star savings on a tax bill is $397 coming up for this school year. And on the Tonawanda side, $391. Next slide, please, Mr. Ginestri. So in addition to the budget, excuse me, there are two additional propositions. One, we will elect 2 new Board of Education members to 5-year terms. That'll expire on June 30th, 2027. The terms of Amy Battaglia and Marianne Jason are expiring this June, and we have 4 candidates that are running for the 2 seats, and we'll meet those candidates very shortly. The second proposition revolves around the Capital Improvements Reserve Fund for the voters to consider. We are asking voters to consider to amend the purpose of the reserve fund to allow for purchase of vehicles and equipment outside of a capital improvement project, and really to utilize, in addition to that, to utilize $500,000 of that reserve to purchase vehicles and equipment for buildings and grounds and transportation. any purchase out in this capital improvement, utilizing this capital improvement reserve fund has zero tax impact on the residential homeowner. It's money that we've already set aside for use specifically around capital improvements. We did use this reserve fund, I think it was in 2020, when 2020 or 2019, I don't remember. I think it's 2020, when we experienced flooding in our high school and we had to get that taken care of right away rather than going to a full-blown capital improvement project. The voters in June of 2020 that year, because the vote got pushed out because of the pandemic, allowed us to spend $700,000 to fix and remediate flooding. Mr. Genesi, if you would just hit the next slide. This gives you kind of an idea as to what exactly we are looking to utilize the $500,000 for. We're looking to purchase three Ford F-350 XL plow trucks at $42,500, totaling $127,500. That would be used for buildings and grounds and facilities for plowing, obviously. We'd look to purchase four Ford Transit high roof maintenance vans at $42,850 for a total of $171,400. Those would replace many of the vans that our facilities department uses to go to job sites and move between building to building. We would look to replace three Ford Transit Connect vans at $25,625 a piece for a total of $76,875. This would replace our mail courier's van, as well as to utilize two of these vans to do small transportation runs and replace minivans that the transportation department does have. And then the couple of last items, the Ford box truck at $50,000 would be for our informational technology department. Our IT department now has a box truck that they use to take parts and repairs from building to building that needs to be replaced. And then lastly, we would look to replace a terrain cut mower, a John Deere 8800A terrain cut mower at $73,525 for a total expected expenditure just under that $500,000 marker of $499,300. I would just, no, that's okay. Just for edification and the audience members, all of those vehicles and equipment up there, we've been talking about it at the board level. Those vehicles are vintage early 2000s, 2002 to 2005. So we are working on borrowed time for many of those vehicles. Those are vehicles that, for whatever reason, prior to me being in the seat, we couldn't get them into the general fund budget, but we did make arrangements at the end of last year to put this money into the capital improvement reserve fund specifically for this reason. So again, on the ballot on May 17th, the budget, the candidates, the Board of Education candidates, and then this proposition to amend the capital improvements reserve fund, the purpose of it, and to authorize us spending $500,000 to replace those vehicles and equipment. So at this point, if the board has any questions or if the audience has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
I have one question.
Sure, Peter.
The plow trucks, do they include a plow or do we have the existing equipment?
We have existing equipment.
I'll ask a question. You know my saga. I ordered my van November 11th. I'm still driving my 2008.
Yes.
Are we sure we can get a hold of those?
Well, we're going to do our darndest. We first have to go through the steps to get a approval from our community, and once that happens, and if we're so lucky to have that happen, we would begin the process to purchase them. I don't know what it looks like. All the pricing that you saw up there is on state contract, so we don't have to go through the competitive bid process. So as soon as we have authorization, hopefully from our community, we can begin that process. And much like you are, wait and see what happens. But it is equipment that definitely needs to be replaced.
Absolutely. I had another question, maybe more of a comment. I still don't understand, maybe I'll have to talk to the town supervisor, why our assessments values are going down for the equalization versus, because at one point we were trying to get to 100
Correct.
and now we're headed back down. I
Correct.
don't understand why.
I can't answer that question. The only thing that I can tell you is the further that equalization number gets from 100%, the further you are away from, full valuation of
Full
your home.
valuation.
I think it's a politically more palatable way of adjusting
Probably,
the assessments.
probably.
Because you can do that unilaterally at the town as opposed to having to share, you get something in the mail that says your assessment went up $50,000. There's a
Right,
lot of angry phone
right.
calls.
Correct,
Yes, that's
correct.
true.
It's very political.
So it's very political right now.
Mhm.
And it probably doesn't have anything to do with it, but our sales tax, we rely on that quite a bit.
Yep.
Is there any effect with the gas tax that we're hearing is going to, be down or lower? Do we have any effect of that as far as with our fuel, with any money we might be receiving?
I don't think so. It remains to be seen and kind of the impact on that. Honestly, and the board knows this, but throughout the pandemic, we've been very conservative in our estimates for sales tax. We thought that the pandemic would have an adverse effect on purchasing, and it was quite the opposite. So while we've added to the number, the sales tax number, it's still moderately conservative, and I feel pretty strongly that we'll hit that number, regardless of what happens with gasoline taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Anyone in our audience?
Mr. Radens?
Can you go back to the slide with the equalization rate? Right there. Should that be 2021?
Where are you? Oh, yeah. So that's correct. So in my May 2021 Amherst estimation of $14.53, and then August 2021 Amherst final.
I was wondering why you jumped back 2 years.
Good catch. Error on my part. My apologies. Seeing no other questions, Mr. Genestri, I think that ends our budget hearing. Just a friendly reminder, that budget vote takes place on Tuesday, May the 17th, in this very room, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. You do need to be a district resident. You will need to bring some sort of ID, but we look forward to a great turnout and hopefully some support from our community.
How many years have they supported the budgets?
Since we've had a successful budget passing since the last one, in terms of a vote, 1977.
Excellent.
I think it's important to note too, you did a comparison to the rate of inflation, but I think the set-asides that you talked about are important because those are individually voted on propositions, right? I mean, so that is something, the general program, the general budget hasn't grown that much really if you talk about setting aside the capital improvement projects, which are a separate referendum.
Yes.
So we're actually considerably, if you set those aside, underpacing inflation, which I think we should be proud of. And I think it's a sustainable budget.
I commend the board. This is my third budget in this seat. And I've had the vantage point from another seat at the budget process. The board does a phenomenal job balancing fiscal responsibility with core programming. And we're in a good place financially as a district. We've had continued support from our community, and these folks up here are to be commended for that.
And you, Don?
And you,
I was
Don.
Oh.
You've got a great.
Your whole office
A little
too,
bit of
your
both.
No,
financial
it's,
office.
we take suggestions, we take priorities, and I just build it. You guys set the priorities and that kind of
I
thing.
don't know if the community knows this, but we've been working on a budget since January.
Yep,
So it's kind of a long process.
you
And
have. I mean, we've started with meeting
that.
with department heads and things like that, really in December, just before Christmas.
so There's been years that we've had to make some really tough decisions. Unfortunately, this year is not one of them.
Okay, so that concludes the budget hearing portion. Yeah, John, sorry.
So when you started budgeting in January, inflation is now where it is now. How worried is the board about continuing to go up. You set these numbers months ago,
Correct.
and if they do a contingency, so
Well, it's a good question. We have, the rainy day fund, John, the assigned and unassigned fund balance piece of it. We carry forward an assigned fund balance, but we also have $2.4 million for some of that very reason. We do have an unassigned fund balance that we can bring forward. Generally, you hear that 4% marker every year. We make recommendations to the board in August based upon where we are, as a district on reserve usage and on that unassigned fund balances where we might anticipate some unforeseen expenses. We do have a couple of contracts that we're working through now that hopefully will be settled, shortly. But if they're not, that would be an area that we would look to kind of offset some of those expenses.
And we are very conservative when we do this. I mean,
Yep.
and some of these things, I think the public probably knows, a lot of this, we don't have a say in, the contractual, the healthcare, there's a bunch of things
No,
that are, I mean, we do and we don't.
I feel, and we're in the midst of a state controller's audit now, and I think very soon that you'll see some results of that over the summertime, and we're in a good place.
Good
We're in a good
place.
place financially, so.
I also want to say that like the budget that we were shown in February looks different from what we're seeing today as it responds to numbers coming in that we didn't have at the very beginning of the year. So it's constantly kind of adjusting and adjusting until we get to this point when we can say we have all of the data we need to
Yep.
have.
Yep.
So.
And I think that we made a mention of it, that we're not fully funded in terms of foundation aid. I think the current administration is committed to fully funding school districts. So I think that we will see that. The aid projection that we got in January from the governor's office didn't budge throughout the budget process. In fact, it went up about $35,000. So normally there's a give and take there, and it's very political, but I think both sides of the house, so to speak, realize the importance of fully funding schools just because of, what we've all been through really the last 2.5 years.
And Scott, what did you say? This is the first year that, as far as
Oh,
getting money?
yeah, we meet with our legislators to talk about budget issues and what we believe we need. And as we did, I met with every one of the area representatives this year as part of area county stuff. And when we walked in the door, we said, this is the first time we're not walking in the door begging for money for foundation aid, and we're happy about where we're starting. So and I've been doing this this is my 16th year of doing it, so.
Okay, so this moves us into the meet the candidates portion of the evening. So just as I made mention early on, the voters, school district voters will elect 2 members to the Sweet Home Board of Education on Tuesday, May the 17th. The terms of Mrs. Amy Battaglia and Mrs. Marion Jason are up. We have 4 candidates running for the 2 open seats: Amy Battaglia, Marion Jason, Jonathan Makeley, and Jessica Stevens. The 2 top vote getters again will be elected to a 5-year term expiring on June 30th, 2027. So I would just ask everybody besides Mrs. Jason and Mrs. Battaglia, if the board could have a seat kind of in the audience. And then Jonathan and Jessica, if you could grab a seat at an open table, that would be great. Start with.
So the mics are on, they're live. You don't need to do anything to turn them on. But for the folks at home,
Because you're first on them, so you'll probably make your statement first, because you're first on the ballot. Sure. Yeah. Why don't you two switch? Hi, Jonathan. First time we're meeting. Hi.
I don't know what I did with the TV.
It's all right. We'll, it's okay. It's all right. I'll, hold on. There we go. So welcome to Meet the Candidates Night, everybody. As I made mention, we have 4 folks running for 2 seats. What we'll do is we will allow each candidate to read or share with us a small statement on why they're running for the board. And then after that, we'll let all 4 go. And then after that, we'll allow for questions. Just what I would ask is if you do have a question, you can come up here and state your question from the podium with the microphone, and we're live streaming it on our website. So just for people, if anybody's watching at home. So I think if I remember correctly, the order on the ballot, Jessica, Jonathan, you guys are in reverse order.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long
But
day,
make it
so I
easy.
thank you. So we'll just go in order of the ballot. So Mrs. Stevens, Jessica Stevens, I would welcome you to start.
Thank you very much. I'm Jessica Stevens, and I'm running for the Sweet Home Board of Education. I was educated in public schools, and I attended the University at Buffalo for environmental geography and chemistry. I worked as a technical writer and environmental scientist before starting a family with my husband, Todd. Together, we have 2 girls currently enrolled at Willow Ridge. Sally is 8 years old and currently in 2nd grade, and Cora is 11 and currently in 5th grade. Cora will be starting at the middle school next year. I'm running for the Board of Education because I hope to be a voice for all stakeholders. I believe in transparency, accountability, and communication. I believe that all stakeholders in the community have a voice and they should be heard. I believe there's room at the table for all points of view and voices. I have a unique perspective that would make me a great board member based on 4 hats that I wear or have worn. First, being a parent of 2 children currently enrolled in the district, I do have a vested interest in the current and future direction of the district. Second, serving on the Willow Ridge PTO board for 6 years. I spent 3 years as board treasurer, 1 year as board membership, and the last 2 years as co-president. Last year, I was awarded the Sid Obracker Award, presented annually for outstanding voluntary service to school and community. And I was a finalist for the Western New York Infotech Good Neighbor Award. Through the PTO, I've learned how to work with different people with different views. And I've seen the challenges presented to teachers, students, and parents. And I've also tried to help foster a working relationship with the other parent groups throughout the district. Third, during my years working as an environmental scientist, I had to learn how to read local, state, and federal guidelines, rules, and regulations. I had to understand them enough to be able to both explain them to my clients and to implement them to keep their employees, the surrounding communities, and first responders safe and in compliance. Similar guidelines are set forth by the federal government, but to a greater extent, the State Department of Education. And I really do look forward to reading through the latest guidelines and seeing how we can interpret and tailor those guidelines to meet the specific needs of our district. And finally, I started a business during the pandemic. I never expected to be a small business owner, but I had to quickly learn what it takes to take a new product, market it, license it, and my business, follow all state regulations, and everything that it takes to run a business in New York State and selling my product throughout the country and overseas. Anyone who knows me knows that when I start a project, I'm all in. There are no shortcuts, and everything is done as it should be done. As a Board of Education member, I will be accessible to all stakeholders in our community. I want members of the community to be able to voice their concerns, even if they know or suspect that I don't agree or see eye to eye with those concerns. Because any concern of a stakeholder in our district is worth listening to, hearing, and trying to find a solution. Because in the end, I'm a voice for the district. I'm not a voice for myself or just for my family. And I wish to initiate positive change in the district. I hope to work as a team with people that I agree with and also with people I disagree with. Because when everybody agrees, then change never happens. And when change never happens, then growth can never happen. I hope to foster a feeling of belonging and community throughout our district. Every student, one community, ready for the future. And I hope to continue to make Sweet Home a place that everyone is proud to call their district their home. I know there are teacher shortages, bus driver and service worker shortages, and I hope we can find a way to keep the employees that we have and encourage more to join our team. One of the biggest goals I have is to figure out a way to address the learning gaps created during the pandemic and to bring back a sense of normalcy to our students and teachers. Some students are going to need more resources than others to close the same gap. And that's why I think it's important not just to look at the learning gaps as data points, but as individual students with individual needs. I hope that in doing so, we can focus on mental health because everybody knows the pandemic has affected all of us in the community. But my goal is to work with the community to make a more inclusive place where everyone is invited to participate, where we constantly work on creating an environment where everyone wants to participate, and to lift the barriers in place that prevent everyone from participating. And I know that we must work within specific limitations, including budgets. And I know that it can get messy when we don't have unlimited funds to attain the idealistic goals that we speak of. But I've dealt with budgets on a much smaller scale, but I'm a numbers person, and I'm really up to the challenge of breaking down every line of the budget year by year and making sure that we are getting the most out of it. I know that sitting on the Board of Education will be a learning curve for me. I know that I will have a million questions, but I'm not afraid to ask those questions. I'm not afraid to seek out those answers, and I'm not afraid of the hard work that it's going to take. I've always been an all-in sort of person, and I'm confident that my experience, knowledge, hard work, and determination will make me an asset to the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Jonathan, I would welcome you now to kind of state your reasons for running for the board.
Hello, I am Jonathan Makeley. I have lived in this district for several years. I was educated in public schools and attended college at Alfred University and University at Buffalo. In my professional career, I am a historian with a focus on the history of American reform movements. As a historian, my work heavily involves working to research and analyze complex subjects to understand them and to help convey an understanding to others. These are skills that I believe would be useful when trying to look at the issues that are facing our district, to understand them and to look for the best possible approaches for addressing them. As a historian, I've been involved with several different historical organizations from which I have experience serving on organizational boards, working with a variety of people to come together to complete projects, designing policy and crafting budgets. In addition, several years ago, I spent a year serving as a representative on the curriculum and teaching committee for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at Alfred University, where I helped to provide input on issues and decisions facing the committee. For me, I've cared about issues of education, community, and civic involvement for a long time, ever since I was a high school student running for student government and trying to make change that way. Throughout my life, I've been engaged with public issues. I've spent years engaging in legislative activism on issues affecting the state, including advocating for policies to help improve funding for public education and libraries, and working to help make college and trade schools and other forms of post-secondary education more affordable and available to people. And I have often been involved in the communities that I've had the privilege of living in and here I'm hoping to, if I were to be elected to use this as a means to help give back to this community, to help build a better future for the students of this district. When it comes to my reasons for running, my main purpose and goal is to work to help ensure that we can have a good quality education for all students in this district. I believe that different parts of our community each have important inputs to provide, and that I would seek to try to bring together all these different parts, teachers, parents, students, and other members of the community, to listen to their perspectives, to work to foster a broader general understanding so we can move forward. And with that, I believe that some of the most important tasks that are facing us in the coming years include working to try to strengthen the quality of the teaching of key subjects such as reading, writing, science, math, history, and to work to support student development. As we know, we've faced a lot of challenges in this pandemic, and it's created a lot of gaps in education, and it'll be important to work to close those gaps and to get our school more back on track as we navigate into a world after the pandemic. Furthermore, I would believe that another important thing that we should work on is working to foster informational literacy and critical thinking skills as the skills of being able to find information, evaluate its credibility, and figure out how to use that information in useful ways are important general skills that will serve our students throughout their lives, no matter what career or direction they go in, since everywhere they go, that the task of dealing with information will be there. Furthermore, another important thing that we must work on is to do our best to make sure that our schools are inclusive, that we do our best to try to meet the needs of individual students, to help foster their growth and success. And towards those overall ends, we should work to foster greater community engagement, to bring the different parts of our community together towards the common goal of working to ensure that all students that come out of this school will have a good education that'll set them up for success in life. And those are the reasons why I am running for the school board, since I believe that my skills in regards to research and analysis, combined with an effort to engage with community, could help to provide useful perspectives as we work to move forward in the coming years.
Thank you, Mr. Makeley. I'd just ask Mrs. Pataglia if you'd like to say a few words about why you're running for the board.
I won't speak long. I've been on the board now for 3 years. I'm finishing up obviously this term and looking to continue the term into the next 5. Through the pandemic, things have been, we'll call it challenging. We've, had our differences, but we've always come out with the best interest of the students in our goals and in our sights. As we move forward into whatever the new normal is going to be, I'd like to see that through. I'd like to be able to continue to bring back all of those things that we've lost. I'd like to be able to help our students who have experienced some learning gaps get back to normal. And our staff needs support. They need to be heard. They need to be supported in everything that they do. And I feel that I've always been a good voice, and I feel I can continue to be that voice. That's pretty much all it is for me moving forward. It's me.
Thank you, Mrs. Battaglia. Mrs. Jason, same
I will not be
statement
long
time.
either. Hi, my name is Marianne Jason, and I'm asking for your vote on May 17th. I am currently serving as Board of Education President and will use my experience to continue working with my board colleagues to improve the district. I have truly enjoyed making a difference in the lives of the children in Sweet Home. I'm a registered nurse in the surgical care unit at Millard Fillmore Suburban for 32 years. So I bring a unique perspective to the board, especially when we've been talking about COVID. I'm a parent of 2 daughters who both graduated from Sweet Home. I got my start in the district by joining the Maplemere PTA, and that hooked me. I became president for 2 years at the PTA, and here I am now. So all you PTA people out there, be careful because you may soon be sitting up here. I deeply appreciate all the things that parents and teachers do when working together for the benefit of the children. As we move forward, I will continue to fight for transparency in all the district does. It's important to continue listening and including all the constituents of the district in our decision-making process. Parents or guardians' input is important, and they do know their children best. Regarding communication, so how do I put my money where my mouth is? Let's look at my record. For example, throughout COVID, and I know I've seen a lot of you on Zoom calls, we had numerous Zoom meetings as we went from step to, I know you're shaking your head, from step to step to step. And we included staff, we included parents, as many constituents as we could. And we discussed immediate actions and made future plans for reopening our schools safely. We are in the process of currently hiring some new people for central office staff as well as a new principal. And has always been the Sweet Home way, a diverse group of constituents will participate in the process. And I've also received numerous emails from parents and staff, and I strive to respond to those pretty quickly. I know many of you in this room had taken advantage of this to raise concerns with me. And while you might not have always agreed with me and the actions I took, I hope you do value the attention I've given to your concerns. Mental health will be a focus of this board that we must deal with. Not only the mental health of our children, but the mental health of our staff. To that end, we've added 2 crisis counselors, 3 social workers, 2 school psychologists. So we're headed in a good place. As we transition from pandemic to endemic, we need to find a way to make up the learning gaps. I think we've all said that. Children need to be physically present in school. They need to see their friends daily, develop social skills, and interact directly with their teachers. This is one reason our entire board was insistent on returning to in-person attendance for the past school year. We need to find innovative ways to move the needle, to help our kids succeed and graduate with the skills they need to be productive members of society. During my years of service, I've remained steadfast in my goal to effectively, efficiently, and responsibly use the financial support of our community to ensure that all our students are prepared for future endeavors. I've been involved in several capital projects, as I know you have too, and stayed within budget and have improved the infrastructure of our district. One project I would like to see to completion is the Northwest Amherst Community Center. I've been working with the town of Amherst for the last 6 years on this project. We were looking at wetlands. We were looking at nests of birds, and to see it come to fruition and the start and as it's moving forward is great. This is going to be a game changer for our families. So please give me the chance to continue my work with my fellow board members. I'll continue to work hard, devote countless hours into making this district the best in Western New York. This includes every student, one community ready for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jason. So at this time, what we would do is we would open up to questions. If anybody from the audience has questions, we'll allow each of the board members to answer the individual questions. So if you have a question, I just ask that if you come up to the podium so that we can do the question and answer period.
Come on, John, you always have questions.
I always have questions like, how much time do I have?
Oh, boy.
I suppose some of the questions are for all the candidates and some are more to the challengers, you might want to call them. So, my name's John Radens. I live at 25 Kmart Drive. For those who know me, I was on the school board for 10 years and been involved in the community for a long time at Willow Ridge Civic Association. I have several questions. What do you think about Sweet Home Central School District being involved in transportation and being in lawn maintenance, as opposed to save money, contracting that out? You know, I would see a substantial amount of money needing to be spent for lawn care and snow plowing. I think we probably have to do that. And going back many years, I hit a brick wall, still must be hitting a brick wall. Why are taxpayers in the transportation business? Because the legacy cost of that, it's not just today's cost. The concern is the legacy costs that we have. So whoever would like to respond to that.
I'll go ahead and start a
Okay.
response. So I know we've looked at it in the past and it didn't go anywhere. A lot of our bus drivers, first of all, a lot of our bus drivers are working for health insurance. They work part-time and that's how they're getting their health insurance. The second thing is a lot of those bus drivers live within our district. So to unemploy them, no.
Okay. Anybody else? I
I'm
mean,
not
they
sure
could
what-
get a job at another
Well,
district, but
they
it's the
live in our
legacy cost.
community.
Okay.
I guess my question is, what would be the alternative?
Contracting.
You contract the bus out like the city of Buffalo does, or Williamsville, I think, is now doing.
Williamsville contracts. too,
Okay.
yes.
And lawn maintenance, I still cut my own lawn, but you watch these contractors come and they're in and they're out and it's moved on. And then we don't have to buy a lawnmower.
Well, then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
And I'll answer it by saying you might not like this answer. Because I honestly don't know enough about this in order to have an educated opinion on it. It's something that I think I would want to look into. I would want to hear why one of the worst reasons to keep doing something is, well, that's the way we've always done it. I don't like that. I don't like that. But I want to know why it's the way we've always done it. And Mary Ann touched on it a little bit. So I would like to, I would like to hear more about that. And then I would like to look at the alternative and weigh the pros and cons. But I'm not looking to change things up on day one. First, you need to learn, I need to learn why things are done the way they are. But to say that that's the way it always is, that's not a good enough excuse. So I would like to look into that. I suppose.
When we had the discussion, we also mentioned that if we do contract out, we lose control, which, it's nice to be able to send buses places. I know, and it's a balancing act, but at the same time, I'm looking at our residents, I'm looking at losing control.
Okay.
Jonathan or Amy, do you have any comment?
Well, as to that matter, I would say that, having, deciding to have certain services such as busing controlled from within the district can have its values in regards to providing a level of control and stability over services. Though I would say if elected, I would look into the details of it and consider the various pros and cons of the different positions for that, and then make a determination as to what would be seem to be best going forward.
Thank you, Jonathan. Amy?
I just would like to say, I think it would be irresponsible of us to contract them out. We just put all sorts of money into a brand new bus garage. We've put our faith in those people to take care of our children for so many years. without looking further into it, it would be irresponsible. We're wrapping up a capital improvement project that our community has voted on. And they've said, yes, we think our buses are important enough. So I think that the community wants us to have our community members serving as our drivers and our buses being our own.
I'm glad to see that there's some competition in the school. It's good to see. And many times we've seen one person run for one seat, and so it's healthy for the community. So my question goes to, it's probably the two challengers. Challengers come forward often because they think something can be improved, and they want to do. What is it you, as challengers, probably to Jonathan and to Jessica, what do you think could be improved, and how would you go about implementing that improvement as a board member? Because there's only a few things you can do.
Absolutely. I love that question. Like I just previously said, I'm not running in any specific agenda or initiative. I don't have one goal, but I think as a Board of Education member, that's a good thing. You have too many things coming in and out to focus your attention on just one thing. Do I think we can do things better? Absolutely. I believe that we can always do things better. I think that once you stop trying to do things better, that's when growth stops. What can we do better? I think a lot of the things that we're going to be faced with in the immediate future is going to be directly related to the learning gaps brought forth with the pandemic. We're still kind of in it. I'm actually in my 5-day post-COVID must wear a mask protocol right now. So we're still kind of going through it, but the learning gaps are something that we are definitely going to have to do. What specifically, I don't have a specific answer as to, there is no magic wand or magic answer. And if there was, I really think that any of the board members would have done it. But I do believe that it's important to always strive to be better. You can always self-evaluate and find ways to do things better.
Jonathan?
Yes, that I would say that when it comes to my reasons for running, the big thing that I'm focused on is trying to help ensure that we have a good quality education for students, that we will be facing challenges trying to overcome the educational gaps and trying to move beyond that and try to do what we can to support students. In terms of how I would seek to approach doing it as a board member, I would say that one part to involve being active and informing myself and as to the issues, to look as to what available information there is on the matter, to look to what schools and educators in various places are doing to approach challenges, and seeing what is or isn't working, to work to have lines of communications with our teachers, to gain insight from them as to what challenges they're facing in the classroom, and what they need to be able to better handle their task of teaching, and what they think can be done to help to have lines of communication with our parents, community members, to gain insights as to what the needs of their children are, to be able to factor that in as to what we prioritize in acting, and by bringing those together, work to have a dialogue and figure out what it is that we need to address, and what can be done to help on that matter. And as a board member, work to the process of designing the budget to make sure that we are investing in the kind of things that students and teachers will need, and that we are handling our budget in an efficient way.
Okay, that's a great segue for the next question.
John, hold on
Can I
one
get-
second.
okay, sure.
John, hold on one
See if
second. In
other
the
people-
interest of time,
Okay.
in fairness and equity, I would welcome Amy and Mary Ann to answer the same question
sure.
about things that you would look to improve.
That's fair. Yeah.
I guess if I'm thinking down the road in the next 5 years, I spoke on bringing back the normalcy of what our kids expect on a day-to-day, the things that they've missed out on in the last few years with the pandemic and things. So that would be probably my number one thing that I see going forward that I'd like to improve. I also, we have a new superintendent. We have some new people in our buildings. We have, I'd like to help get them acquainted and know what Sweet Home is. When we built the Every Student, One Community, Ready for the Future, when we built that, they weren't here. I want them to know what that is. I want them to know that Sweet Home is a family and we have a great reputation, and I want them to carry it on. So that's what I look to do in the next 5 years.
Mary Ann?
And also, I think bringing back that normalcy, I mean, get the kids back in the cafeteria eating, let them back to the gym. There's just some things that we need to get these kids back into some normalcy. I mean, our second graders or first graders, kindergarten, first grade, pretty much has been mask time. And again, as we move forward, mental health, I think we're going to have to focus on, but we have to realize that as a board and as new members, if they come on board, you're one person out of 7. So collectively is how we work, not singularly with agendas. So the other thing, and you said right when you went off, is questions to our new board members. It is just so great seeing this many people, because I don't think we've ever had this many people at a Meet the Candidates. Usually it's 1. No, you're making faces. It really isn't. Okay, yes. So maybe we're getting the word out there and people are finally seeing they need a voice. Come to these meetings.
Maybe people want to be involved locally because Albany's been
Fantastic.
pulling the strings.
Fantastic.
So what can we do locally?
Come on, it's important.
Yeah, Mr. Radens, just in the interest of time and so others can ask questions, we'll give you one more question.
Oh, which is the really? Want to pick one out? Okay, I guess I'll ask this one to Mary Ann. You had said to fight for transparency. Is it a fight? Is it difficult?
It's,
Is achieving transparency a difficult thing in this
but I
district?
think I use the word fight because we have to focus on continuing to do that. We've got to involve all our constituents, our parents, our teachers. We can't leave anyone out for this. When we talk about constituents, we're still fighting to get businesses to come to our meetings. So we have their input. Do we have any real businesses? It's great to see people here, but we need to continue to fight for those groups that maybe aren't so much represented. But parents, come on down, because we're dealing with a lot of heavy stuff in your children's education. You need to be a part of this.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. You did say that with the budget, maintaining the programs and that we have, but I think from the safety committee earlier, there's going to be psychologists and you mentioned mental health.
I mentioned,
So I think
actually,
it's.
yes, 3
These are new
psychologists.
positions that the district's having. So I just want to compliment the district for recognizing a need for some of this mental health and putting some money in the budget for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Radens. Are there any other questions from our community from the floor?
Hi, my name is Chris Jason. I live at 91 Ava Lane, and I am married to one of the candidates, but you'll have to guess which one.
Not so tough.
Um,
Some new
so-
questions, though. I'm not sure what he's going to say.
So my questions are mostly focusing on COVID. It's been a huge impact on school and everything else in our whole lives. So during this past school year, Sweet Home, like most suburban districts in Western New York, chose to only offer full-time in-person schooling. For the previous school year, Sweet Home offered a hybrid option where parents could choose to send their parents in person, their students full-time or remote schooling full-time. Did you agree with the decision for September 2021 that only in-person instruction should be offered, or should we have continued with the hybrid model?
But maybe Jessica, if we can start on the other side of the table this time.
I'd love to answer this question just because I've been very vocal about this particular question. And I will say we chose remote learning last year for our children. Number of issues, my daughter's high risk. We have a home environment where we could educate our kids at home. And by doing so, we could open up more spots for those parents who needed to send their kids in person. At the very beginning of this year, I was very vocal, very, very, very vocal about continuing remote learning. I have to say that I was wrong. For me personally, my children would have continued to do great in remote learning this year. But my children are not the norm. That is not the experience of most of the children in the district. And when we make decisions as a district, we can't make decisions just for my child. We have to make decisions for the majority, for what's good for most. So I'm happy that they went back in person. And yes, I am admit, because I was very vocal and you heard me. I think all in all, it's been a very good thing. Was a lot of socialization, a lot of educational aspects that they were not getting at home and that I really wasn't aware of until they returned to in person. So yes, I believe the decisions that were made this year were the correct decisions. I believe the American Academy of Pediatrics would also agree, because if you ask any of those agencies, they will tell you that kids need to be in school in person. So while I personally had a problem with it at the beginning, and especially if I am elected as Board of Education member, I'm not pushing for my kids. I'm working for everyone's kids. So I just wanted to make sure I answered that first, because I don't want to come off as a hypocrite. I'm admitting exactly where I was at the beginning of the year and why I've changed my mind. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. Jonathan, same question.
Yes, to that matter, I think that overall it is good that the school's made progress towards returning to in-person education. That at the time there was reasons for having a hybrid education due to how things were going on with the pandemic. And that overall we should work towards the aim of being able to regularly have in-person instruction going forward, although it may be important to retain the possibility for remote instruction, at least for some students who would have a medical or otherwise a serious need that would keep them from in-person instruction. Likewise, that we may not know how things are going to be going on going forward in regards to what would be required for the school from the state in regards to instruction. So we may have to adjust in some sense, but overall, I say that we should work to be able to have it where the general student population can receive instruction at school and be able to return to a normal learning environment.
Thank you, Jonathan. Amy?
Yes, I agree with the way that we brought students back in September. I had some concerns that I had voiced at the time. I, was nervous, as is every parent, I believe, putting their student or their children into, what some consider to be the lion's den of the illnesses. But as we've grown through the year, through the first bout of the pandemic and continued in through this year, what we've learned, aside from a lot of things about the pandemic itself, children are resilient. And if they have to wear a mask so they can be with their friends, they will. If they have to sit 6 feet apart so they can have lunch in a group, they will. If they can go back to what they knew prior to that, they'll be very excited. But, children are resilient, and I think that they've been through the most, but I think that they were able to rally. And when we made the decision to send them back, I think it was a good decision.
Mary Ann?
I should say with 100% assurity, there is not one single person on this board that does not consider the safety of your kids and staff #1 priority. If there was any doubt our kids would be safe, they would not have come back. But you know what, gang? We need to live with this. COVID's going to be around like the flu. If we go remote every time a few kids get COVID, we're not going to have these kids in school, and they've got to be in school. We've seen that. We've mentioned it ad nauseum tonight. They need to be in school. So safety of your kids, #1 priority, and that's how the board made that decision.
Mr. Jason, did you have another question?
Pretty quick question. Do you all encourage people to vote yes on the budget?
100%.
Yep,
Oh, 100%,
absolutely,
yeah. Yes.
absolutely.
Resounding yes.
Yes.
Anybody else from the audience have questions? Come on up.
Hi, Chris Irwin, Edgewater Drive. So thank you all for volunteering your time and your energy to be on the board, or, to run for the board. You're to be commended. Thank you. So where are you? What's your position on, critical race theory in our schools? For it, against it, moving towards it, moving away from it? What do you think?
I can answer.
oh.
I answered first last time.
No, it does. We are, first of all, we are not at that point. It's very premature, I think, for any of us to give answers on something like that. We have a diversity committee, a DEI committee that is just beginning to delve into diversity. I think they've had 3 meetings, maybe. This is not going to be something that we can answer in a quick 1-minute spiel. I think to be determined, and this is going to be a long process while we delve into diversity, delve into our DEI, and we've got some very capable members headed up by Joanne that can help make some decisions and move our community forward. In the future, we'll have to answer some of those questions, but right now I think it'd be premature,
All
my
right.
opinion.
Amy?
I would have to agree. We've got the DEI committee that is, just starting up and getting that ball rolling. It's important conversations that need to be had. We all bleed red, in my opinion, and we should all be treated as such. So going forward, I think those conversations need to be had. But it is very premature to have these conversations, in my opinion.
Jonathan, same question.
Yeah, as for that matter, the term critical race theory has become a term that's a political hot topic with very differing understandings between different people as to what it's even referring to. And I would say that it's important to look beyond the buzzwords to look at the core important issues that we work to make sure that the school is inclusive towards all students, that we hold to principles of equality and mutual respect, and that we work to ensure that the teaching of subjects such as history and social studies is based around providing a solid facts and context and a decent understanding of how past events have affected the society in which we live.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jessica?
I just want to start by saying, I believe a lot of people misunderstand critical race theory as DEI. So DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is really what our district is focusing on more. Critical race theory, as it stands and as it's a political hot button issue, there really has not been any discussion of CRT at the elementary, middle, high school level. And if something like that became part of our curriculum, it would be handed down by the Department of Education. It's not something that we don't really get to sit around and determine what the curriculum is. We can take the curriculum and kind of I just think that the questions about CRT, I think, are a lot of times comes out of not quite understanding the terms. So in our district, it's definitely diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I think anybody can get behind. And as far as the CRT, let's leave that to the colleges for now. Let's leave that for debates, but outside of the public school system.
Thank you, Jessica.
I hope I
Thank you. Good answers.
explained.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor?
Behind you.
Right behind you.
That's okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm Jody Roberts at Jeffrey Drive. I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of your focus on mental health. Being a parent of two, as well as a social worker and therapist in the community, I think it's something that is really important. So I understand the importance of for mental health for our students, teachers, and staff. But I'd like to ask how you could maybe encourage or increase the supports to the family units as a whole. Family systems theory, if we touch one, everything else moves around, right? And everybody else is affected. And I think it's going to be important, I guess, to my question of keeping in mind the socioeconomic and cultural differences of how each of our families have been impacted differently in the district. And just wondering how you guys would address that.
First of all, thank you for what you do.
Yeah,
It's
you're welcome.
appreciated. And thank you to the people who say thank you to us for what we do. Some of the kids think we earn a whopping salary. Zero. So in answer to your question, that's why I'm so excited about the Northwest Amherst Community Center working as kind of a wraparound for some of these services. We just went to the ribbon cutting last week or 2 weeks ago. And they're going to have the basketball courts. They're going to have things for kids. They're going to have things for grandparents. They're going to try and get and NOAC type things over there. So it's going to be a game changer. So that's one of the ways. And NOAC continues to work her magic.
Oh, she does,
And
yes.
I mean, what can we say about Ann? Just helping our families. People think Amherst, it's such a rich district. No. We have a lot of people who are struggling. I've talked to older people who are trying to make decisions between food and medicine. So when we have that going on, we cannot sit back on our laurels. We need to do better and we need to do more. But I'm so excited about this community center because, as I said, I think it's going to be a game changer.
Thanks, Marianne. Amy?
We're invested in the mental health of our faculty, staff, and students. Case in point, the hiring of our psychologists and counselors and providing them with professional development so that they can better serve our constituents within the buildings. Our families have the opportunity to reach out to Ann Nowak in our community center, and Ann always will reach out too if she knows there's something going on. So, we definitely put our money where our mouth is when we talk about working on our mental health for our faculty, staff, and students. To remember all three of them. It's very different at work. But it's important, and we've talked about it at length, and where we're going from here next year should be we should have further initiatives going forward next year with our new mental health employees. I'm like, those people.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Amy, thank you. Jonathan, same question.
Yeah, similar to the comments that have been said before, I'd say that the district has been working to make progress with mental health, with things such as the community center and staff for supporting counseling and such, and that those leaders have their initiatives that they are working on. And I would think that it's important for the board to be in communication with those who are doing this work to understand what they need and what we could seek to do to help support them in their efforts.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jessica?
As Marianne and Amy mentioned, the district has already started taking steps to address mental health, and those are steps that I greatly appreciate. I make it no secret that I myself deal with anxiety, and I have a history of depression. So I think one of the things is we really need to fight against stigma, and we need to not be afraid to talk about these things. And I'm not, personally, but I was recently reading an article, I believe it was the Academy of Pediatrics, that children should be evaluated for anxiety starting at age 8. And that was kind of an eye-opening thing for me to read, that it could happen that young. I do think that, and this isn't a criticism because I think we can always do better. No matter how good you're doing, you can always do better. I think maybe the district does have to seriously consider some kind of intervention, a screening at that young of an age, looking for anxiety, giving the kids the tools to deal with those things before it does become a greater issue. And especially with the pandemic, all of us, I mean, teachers, staff, I can't imagine what it was like trying to, get teachers to man rooms when, dealing with substitute shortages and things like that. And so while there's always mental health is always something that needs to be addressed. But I think especially within the last couple of years that we all dealt with together, I do think that we need some more early intervention programs. And I believe that what we have and what we're planning on doing is great. But yes, there's always room for improvement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any other questions? Mr. Simondera?
Good evening. On behalf of the Teachers Association, just want to say thank you for your time and commitment and dedication to all our current board members and past board members. Your time and dedication is amazing, supporting our children, our programs, our staff, everyone. And to my colleagues out in YouTube land, happy Teacher Appreciation Day.
Yes.
So here's a soft toss question, okay? What's something that you're particularly proud of about our district that we do? It's a non-negotiable, you don't want to change. So what are the things you'd like to see preserved in 30 seconds or less? Thank you.
Go ahead, Jess.
Oh, you didn't.
Well, no, I went first last time.
How about Jonathan? Jonathan, why don't
Okay,
you
yeah,
go
there you
first?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say that one thing I'm particularly proud of is all the many people throughout this community, whether teachers, or parents, or other community members who care so much about the future of children in our district and are willing to lend their time and effort to support the school, especially in these trying times in the recent years.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm gonna go this way. Amy, you go next.
Panther Pride. Panther Pride all day. Every student, one community, ready for the future is our tagline, but so many of us, that is really what we are. You know, here at Sweet Home, we have such a pride of who we are and where we are and what we are. It's pride.
Mrs. Jason?
So 8, 9 years ago, I sat in a room with 10 other people, and that's what we came up with. You and I came up with that, and I'm very proud of that. But mostly, I know you and I, our commitment of staff to kids, they take safety and run with it. We don't rest on our laurels. We're always thinking safety. I think every staff member here, whether it's custodial, whether it's teachers, bus drivers, I think they bleed blue and gold because they're very committed to our kids. And the parents out there should be so happy that we've got such committed adults, and we continue to say, please, if each kid could make a connection with an adult, that's going to go such a long way. So it's mostly commitment of our adults to our kids.
Thank you. Jessica?
I will definitely agree. Panther pride is definitely something that is to be noted. I want to say also though, since day one in the district, I'm a very opinionated person. I've always felt comfortable bringing up my concerns. I've always felt comfortable bringing up my ideas, even if they were not agreed with or well received. And that's one thing that I think is really important in making a good, strong district, is the ability to listen to different points of view, the ability to hear those concerns, and to always be willing to kind of self-reflect. So I think our district's ability to self-reflect and strive to be better.
Thank you, Jessica. Last call. Any questions from the floor?
Come on, this is fun. Come on.
So just a huge, maybe a round of applause for our candidates. This is never easy. So thank you to Jessica, to Jonathan, Amy, and Marianne. Just a reminder that the 4 candidates will be on the ballot on May 17th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. right here in the Virgil Center, which is when the district vote takes place. So at this time, I'd ask Jessica and Jonathan to come back into the audience, the board members to come back to their seats. We do have a meeting to finish up. There's a presentation on the 22-23 school district calendar and a presentation from Mr. Genestri as well.
Before we lose our audience, if I could editorialize a little bit. First of all, thanks for the great questions. They're outstanding questions. And just like Marianne said, we don't see a lot of folks in our audience a lot. John, I would love your question to have come up during the budget hearing. I mean, as stewards of the taxpayer dollars, we owe you that answer. We owe you the debate. And with the district office staff and the full complement of the board, I think we can give you that answer. The question about social work, I believe one of our study sessions, we're going to have the Family Support Center in here. That's a great opportunity to bring that up and make us talk about it. Make us give you the answers you're looking for. But please continue to come. Nobody expects you to come all the time. It's pretty boring most of the time, but certainly there are times when there's a great opportunity for your input and our debate. So thank you.
Yes.
We occasionally tell jokes.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah,
tell
we
you.
do.
They're not always good, but
Well,
It's Brian.
All right. So I like that people are going to stay. Wonderful. So next is the approval of the agenda. We'll be voting on that next week. Any questions, concerns? All right, minutes of the previous meeting. Any questions or concerns? Any communications we've received? I don't think I saw any.
I did get a communication from the swim club, which I forwarded on to Don, requesting information about potentially renting out some of the facilities. They're at UB right now. They're growing. And so they were just looking for an opportunity to have that discussion. And
Okay.
just want to mention that.
And I think I received communication, Peter, from a group that's doing a meat raffle.
The baseball program,
There you go. When is it?
May 14th.
At?
It's North Tonawanda, the VFW post on
Service.
Erie, I believe.
Okay. And if people wanted tickets?
It's online. You can contact me. Emails on the website. Any of the baseball parents also have tickets.
Sounds good. Anyone else? All right, this takes us to our first open session. As per board policy 1512, we hold 2 open sessions at each meeting. This first session is limited to comments on the agenda items for tonight's meeting. The board welcomes attendance and participation by district residents, people having business within the boundaries of the school district, and people who do business with the Board of Education. Speakers must be at least 16 years of age and are limited to 3 minutes. Please preface your comments with your name, address, group affiliation if appropriate. Non-district residents must include the name of their business or how they do business with the Board of Education. All speakers in this open session must state which agenda item they are speaking on, and later on in the meeting, we will have a second open session. Any takers? All right, seeing none, that takes us to unfinished business. There is none, and next, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Jason. We're going to start tonight with the presentation from Mrs. Bayless on our proposed calendar for 2022-23.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to share with you the proposed calendar for the 22-23 school year. The proposal comes from the recommendation of a committee that we brought together. I'm going to ask Mr. Genestri to advance to the next slide to share with you who served on our committee. But essentially,
I get this pop-up every once in a
that's okay.
while.
We're not in any hurry. I've got some things to share too.
Okay.
But essentially, the calendar committee gets together, is convened annually around February to start talking about the calendar for the next school year. So we had some new members join our team this year. There was rumors that it was a really exciting committee to be on. So people were excited to be on their first calendar committee meeting. Some years, the calendar committee is really exciting because there's lots of days to talk about and play with in terms of how we want to allocate the required number of days over the course of the calendar. And some years there's little to talk about because the calendar is so condensed. This particular year is one of those years where the calendar is super condensed, meaning Labor Day falls late and the last day of the teacher rating day for exams falls earlier in June. So the calendar is very tight. And when the calendar's tight, there's few days to play with in terms of where you want to allocate the days. So there wasn't a lot of conversation, but I wanted to recognize those who's participated on the committee. Our parents, Lisa Kazes from the high school, Mallory Patoric from Glendale, Liz Bechtel from the middle school PTA, Julie Thompson from Maplemere, Jessica Stevens and Deepa Sinai from Willow Ridge. From our teachers unit, Paul Simondera, our president of the Shea unit, Eva Basehart, Jen Heidinger, and Amanda Glenn. From our service employees unit, Ron Farlio, president, and Dan Fulars. From our Shasta unit, Bob Polino, and from district myself and Mr. Feldman.
Joanne, could I just stop you real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
I know that the Heritage Heights PTA had a big loss this year.
Yes.
Are there plans to include Heritage Heights in the calendar committee next year?
Yes, so Heritage Heights was absolutely invited to the committee that particular day. The representative from Heritage was unable to make it.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if this was the form of the
Yes.
committee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There were others who were invited to the committee as well, but these are those were the members who were able to actually show and participate in their meeting.
Okay, thank you.
But as we know, when we're putting the district calendar together, there's a lot of considerations that we have to include, including the state education department regulations, which I'll share a couple in a few minutes. We look at the New York State assessments for Regents exams and 3 through 8 assessments. We look at our legal holidays, our contractual language for our bargaining units, stakeholder interests, the BOCES calendar, and emergency closure concerns. Those are some of the big ideas that go into the framework or parameters of our calendar. On the next slide, some of the regulations that we need to abide by. Mr. Jester, if you could advance the slide, thank you. Include the education law with regard to the number of days schools must be in session in order to maximize their foundation aid. So we must be in session for 180 days. The commissioner regulations also require us to have a minimum number of aggregate number of hours. So for grades K through 6, essentially it's a 5-hour day at 180 days or 900 hours. In grades 7 through 12, it's 5.5 hours a day at times 180 days or 990 hours. And the regulations do permit half days or shortened days of student attendance to count towards those aggregate hours. On the next slide, what does aggregate hours mean? And those are essentially the days that in which student attendance is taken. Those are the days that we count as student attendance, but we're also permitted to count Regents exam days and state assessment days as student attendance days, whether or not all students participate in the assessments. And up to 4 superintendent's conference days per year are also permitted to be included in the aggregate number of hours. And then there's some parameters for which those 4 superintendent's conference days can be allocated. I won't read through all of them, but there are some parameters there. When we look at in the next slide, when we look at the state assessments for the next school year, the Regents exams in January are the 24th through the 27th, and in June, the 14th through the 22nd. We also have our New York State assessments currently scheduled, our ELA for April 19th through the 21st, and for grades 3 through 8 math scheduled for May 2nd through the 4th of 2023. We look at our legal holidays to make sure that we're abiding by our holiday calendar. We also, just of note, I've highlighted the Juneteenth holiday. That has been a legal holiday that's been added to our school calendar. In line with our DEI initiative and the importance of recognizing Juneteenth, that has been added as a holiday for all of our bargaining units and obviously for our students and families across the district. The next consideration that we look at in terms of contractual parameters, our teacher's contract does call for 186 teacher days, which includes the 4 superintendent's conference days. By contract, we start after the Labor Day, in September. And our last day is the following day, following Regents Rating Day, would be the last possible day for teacher attendance. We recognize 2 half-days near the last week of the first 2 trimesters for our elementary teachers to complete their report cards, and 2 half-days of elementary student attendance the last 2 school days of the year. We do provide for parent-teacher conference days in the calendar. At the elementary, there's 1 full day and 1 extended day. And at the middle and high school, there's 1 extended day, typically in the fall for middle and high school families. Some additional considerations that we take a look at are wanting to make sure that we maximize our instructional days and hours for our students. We obviously are a member of the Erie One BOCES region. And so to that end, we try to align our calendar with the BOCES calendar so that students who participate in our district in the BOCES programming, that their days, the days we're in session are similar to the days that BOCES are in session and vice versa, so that we optimize those days for our students participating in those programs. We like to build in options for emergency closure if needed. One of the goals that was shared out by parents years ago and has continued to be a concern and a consideration is minimizing the number of half-days of student attendance at the elementary level for childcare purposes. The importance of providing evening hours for parent-teacher conferences at all levels. Continuing to provide elementary trimesters. That was an initiative that was started several years ago through the district in collaboration with our teachers and parent groups in terms of thinking providing the idea of trimesters versus quarters to be more supportive and timely for sharing out feedback with regard to student progress. And finally, providing elementary teachers with half days prior to conferences to get those report cards to the parents before those conferences occur. So in proposing the calendar for the 22-23 school year, we looked at those are the general parameters that we worked with, and again, little time to play with in terms of some of the days that we might like to have a recess day that wouldn't fit into the school calendar. But essentially, our opening day is Tuesday, September 6th would be the proposed opening day, staff development day. September 7th would be the first day of classes for our students. We would have an additional superintendent's conference day or staff development day on November 8th, which is aligned with the elections for 2022. Thanksgiving recess, there had been some good conversation about looking at trying to take the day before the Thanksgiving recess. That was one of the days that was up for consideration. The calendar wouldn't provide for it. in terms of getting in those required number of days. There was some good conversation. And in the end, there was, our looking to serve all of the members of our school community. And that in trying to take that day worked for some members of our community and not for others. And in the end, the decision was to stick with the 2 days for the Thanksgiving recess as opposed to trying to find a creative solution to provide that extra day, which would have required our teachers and service employees to arguably start before the Labor Day in some capacity. We looked at the winter break, aligning it with the BOCES calendar of December 26th through January 2nd, the midwinter break for February 20th through the 24th, an additional staff development day on March 17th, spring recess for April 3rd through 7th, graduation day on June 22nd with our rating and last day of teacher attendance on June 23rd. With that calendar in mind, it does provide our contractual workdays for our teachers at 186 days. It provides student attendance to meet our state education requirements at the elementary level. It provides for 184 days at the secondary level, 186 days. It builds in those 4 superintendent's conference days. There are 2 half-days at the elementary level between December 2nd and March 17th to make up for that 4th day. And then I think that is essentially then the calendar as proposed. This is obviously a calendar that you can't read from your seats, I'm sure. But I did provide a hard copy for the board to have in front of you. You can see that if you look at that calendar and the next calendar, which is the Erie one, Western New York Regional School calendar, that they are fairly aligned to the extent that we could make that work. And so in the end, this is the calendar as proposed. It's certainly in future years when there is more room to play within the calendar, that, the consideration, for example, some of the other conversations that we had at the committee, looking at the day before Thanksgiving as a desire, a wish list, looking at potentially the day after, like extending the spring break by a day is always depending on where the Easter falls, if you will, for the days for travel days and what have you for families is in addition. But also looking at some of the other days that support some of the religious observances of other cultures that we certainly are a part of our school community. So we did have those conversations about being responsive in our calendar and whether or not we could fit them into the calendar itself, or making sure that those important religious observance days are communicated to our teachers and staff and school students and communities so that we can be cognizant of those days with planning events at school, tests and such, to make sure that we're being really as responsive as we can to some of those important days and holidays that we can't embed in our school calendar in terms of actual recess days. And I think that's really all I have in terms of the calendar, but I certainly welcome any questions.
I have a question, and you're probably not going to like this, but it has to deal with that day before Thanksgiving. So as a BOCES teacher, I work in a high school that has students from all 19 component districts coming into our building. When district calendars come out, every BOCES teacher's building looks at those calendars and makes a list of when schools are off, when schools are not. So of the 19 component districts and BOCES, that's 20 districts, we have 17 calendars right now. Sweet Home and Alden are the only 2 that have school on that day. Are we at all concerned about attendance, not only from students, but from staff who have kids that go to other districts that are going to be home? I'm just concerned about that day. Us and Alden. There's 2 other districts, I will preface, that have PT, parent-teacher conferences. Akron has parent-teacher conferences, and Cheektowaga Sloan has a staff development day on that day. That concerns me that we're one of 2 districts, and I think the attendance is going to be a big issue on that day.
So a really great question. And I think attendance tends to be problematic on any day before a break. It tends to be, whether it's before, whatever the breaks might be, the winter break, the winter recess, or the spring break, or the Thanksgiving recess. Attendance tends to be down those days before. So that is always a concern. And when you back it up, it tends to be that day as if you make it the day before, then it's that day that is, there's attendance concerns as well. With regard to aligning with the BOCES calendar, we do have in our district, it's fairly unique that as you know, the Erie One BOCES contract does allow Erie One teachers to come back before the Labor Day break or the Labor Day holiday. So many districts in Erie One they do professional development the last week of August, which gives them those extra days to play with. Our district doesn't have that capacity to come back the end of August in order to have some of those days to play with like many other districts do. There was some conversation about having a floating day, if you will, for our teachers unit over the summer to allow for that day before the Thanksgiving break. However, and we had a significant conversation about equity, and that day before the Thanksgiving break would have been a day without pay for our service employees if we didn't have school that day. And so we have close to 300 members of our service employees unit who would be without pay on that day before the break. So the service employees unit was significantly concerned about that. And we felt it was in the best interest of the district in honoring all voices to take care of our service employees as well.
Peter, how would other districts address this service unit how would that be addressed?
I just find that it's rare that listen, I've been at BOCES for 19 years. This is the second time we've gotten that Wednesday off. And I think now this is the second time that Sweet Home has actually had school in those 19 years. So I understand where you're coming from, Joanne, but I foresee some, I don't know.
Is there anywhere else to take that day from? I mean, I know you're so tight. Is there rob Peter to pay Paul? Is there somewhere else on here that?
Well, so keep in mind that from Labor Day, so our service employees by contract, they work the days of student attendance. So student attendance by this calendar provides for 186 days of student attendance. So if you take away one of those days of student attendance, which is what would happen if you took that day away, our service employees would lose a day's pay. So you could have them come in alone on the day before Thanksgiving and do something. But there was a question about what message does that send to the service employees to come in by themselves the day before Thanksgiving to get paid? So we had a significant conversation with our administrators union, who would then arguably have to come in that day for supervision of those, of whatever staff development might be on that day, which isn't necessarily a bad thing by any means, but there was conversation about the equity of it all. And to that end, if we took that day out of the calendar, there was a couple consequences. One is a significant one that our service employees would lose that day's pay, but also we would lose a day in the calendar for, in terms of closure, emergency closures. If we went from 186 days to 185 days in our student calendar, we're down one day in terms of the ability to manipulate days in the event of some kind of emergency closure that shuts us down and requires us to find days somewhere else. So that would be a day that we would lose to play with. It's a tough calendar year. And as I said, sometimes is the contraction and the expansion of the calendar. And when the calendar is going to then in the next couple of years expand again, and there'll be days to play with. Some years it's so expanded that you can take the day before the Memorial Day holiday. It's a 4-day weekend. Sometimes it provides for that extended holiday there. The ability to extend the Thanksgiving recess or some of the other breaks when the calendar expands permits that. But next year is a really tight year. Unfortunately, our contracts don't allow us the opportunity to start the school year before Labor Day, like many districts do.
For the couple questions, one is the 186 days, we're required to have 180. Is that correct?
Yes.
The 6 days allow for some flexibility and buffer. I guess related to this issue are those 6 days primarily because of snow days? And what I'm wondering about is there any way to see how the first few months go and if we still if we haven't used any of those days, to then say we have a little more flexibility going into Thanksgiving, because we've gone through a third of the year or 40% of the year without using any of those buffer days. I guess that's a risk mitigation question. And then again, also, I assume that flexibility allows for snow days or, the Super Bowl parade or something like that, potentially.
I mean,
So-
certainly the Board of Education can always declare a Super Bowl parade day, right? Or should there be some consideration for there to be the issue is if we don't have school, if it's not a day of student attendance, our service employees don't work days when students are not in attendance by contract, and that provides an issue for pay for our service
So
employees.
Negotiating with
It's
them
more
right
the
now.
pay.
Is that something that we could work on?
Okay.
I also, I want to just mention,
Two
I would like to understand the discussion about the week of spring break, or not the first break in February. I'm talking
February
about
to
April,
April.
because I've had a few people discuss and ask me about, or seem disappointed that it wasn't the following week. And I want to understand the discussion around that. I know I would assume a lot of that has to do with the Western New York, aligning the calendars.
Yes.
Um,
So one of the
There are
reasons,
other
yeah.
reasons behind that as
So
well.
my understanding, certainly our goal is to align, to Peter's point, our goal is to align to the West New York regional calendar. The calendar, I believe, that week was picked because one of the considerations is that in terms of the state assessments being scheduled for the week of April 17th, that if you had that spring recess the following week, that kids would come back and start with the assessments. So having the recess week the week before gives a week back and a couple of days after to get ready for the assessments, as opposed to just coming off a break and here's the assessments. So I do believe that the reason the West New York Regional School calendar puts the recess week, the week of the 3rd, is to support the assessments. And then we fall in line as a component district to take the same week.
That week, just so it's clear though, I mean, it would, if the week, because I believe Star Point has that week off.
They don't have off in February. It's Niagara County. It's a Niagara County does not have the
Different
February.
But,
week
and
off.
I understand they don't have that week, but what I'm asking, my question is there's really not any flexibility around that, because then we would be out of alignment, right? And our students that are going to
Right.
those programs, they'd miss that week.
Yes,
Two.
because then you miss two.
Because they'd be off a different week,
Yes.
so they'd end up missing 2 weeks.
Yes, you're right. Okay. So but I think that's important, right? Because we're getting these, if we have or somebody says, hey, how come we don't have this week instead of that week? It's important for the public to know that the kids attending those programs, we have to align those to make it work.
Right, and so the way the calendar is currently built, there's only one day that we're in conflict with the BOCES calendar or the West New York Regional calendar. But that suggestion would double those weeks in terms of the conflict with the calendar.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I do believe in Niagara County, some school districts do take the 2 weeks in April, which was a practice many, many years ago, before there was a February break. But this region here follows the February break 1 week and 1 week in April.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that, explanation. I think, again, it's just, I'm okay with the how it stands. I just think it's important that, it's mentioned, because again, it's the other side of it is not, is we wouldn't want to do that. We wouldn't want to be not in alignment. But I think a lot of parents probably who may not have kids, they may not be at that point yet. They wouldn't understand, they don't understand the reasoning. So
For sure.
appreciate
Agreed.
that.
I also want to go back to the snow days. So I saw recently, quick side note, I saw in the news that there were 2 districts that offered a mental health day. And I was looking to see which districts they were, so I typed in mental health day, school district, Erie County. And Sweet Home's Family Support Center was the second thing that came up. And we were talking about how important mental health is to Sweet Home, so I just wanted to share that. So I wanted to echo Mr. Belanti's point about maybe trying to see if we can figure something out with with our support staff union, so that in the future we could maybe, like, once we're past snow season, like in July maybe, or at least out of the woods where we don't need 6, to have a day sometime in the spring as like a mental health day. I remember hearing that on the news and just thinking that it was a really nice gesture, especially since it's so important to us for our own focus as a board, focusing on mental health. And there's a lot of different ways that we could use a day. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that no one shows up. Maybe it's a day where we're promoting mental health in like, we can get creative with it, but I think it's something that we should really think about for the future. But I absolutely think that we should find a way to make sure that all of the constituents of Sweet Home are benefiting from that equally. So maybe that's something that we can think about going forward. And also, I was wondering, there's a superintendent's conference day on November 8th. I assume that has to do with maybe the trimesters and elementaries. Oh, that's election day. That's out of our control. All right.
Ms.
I
McDonald,
tried.
We've tried to put it in our control, but we've lost that battle.
Lewiston Porter, because of this year's, I don't think anyone had really off the day before Thanksgiving. Lewiston Porter's superintendent gave them the mental health day, which was a snow day, technically, on the day before Thanksgiving this year. In answer to your question, you said you would look it up. I know that my niece and nephew go to Newport, and I know he did that. I think he was the only one.
Also, when we have snow days, do our service employees not get paid for snow days?
No, emergency closure days are paid days.
Okay, good.
They're considered, and by contract, it's an emergency closure day, and they are paid days for all staff.
If we have an October storm, I just want to know where's the first place we'd start picking from to add back on if we started running into issues with days?
So currently, we have 6 days built into the schedule. Well, there's 4 at the elementary level, so we have 4 days initially to play with. If we, to get the 6 days, to get the additional 2 days back for the elementary, we would have to pull it from the end of the calendar where those half days are for elementary school. And look at the parent-teacher conference days would be the next area to go to. Parent-teacher conference days can be converted to superintendent's conference days. So you could gain back that parent-teacher conference day as well as coded as a superintendent's conference day to get that day back. If those options run out and we run out of the allotment that we have, to maintain the 180 days, a couple things would have to happen. Sometimes depending on how severe or significant the situation is, the state education department grants waivers for districts. I think when there was that hurricane in New York City, there was a waiver that was granted to those school districts so they couldn't.
Or with
Right.
COVID, they granted.
Right, and those days were waived, or that requirement was waived in terms of getting your foundation aid. A worst case scenario is you'd start taking it off the February break or the April break. Days would come off of those breaks. I think that happened
It did
during the
happen.
October storm.
We started, actually, that was when we had the Memorial Day Friday and Monday, so we actually gave back the
Yes.
Friday,
Mhm.
so. Anybody else? Thank you to you and all the hard work of your committee. It's just mind-boggling that you can make all the pieces fit. So thank
Well,
you.
it's just a really tough year. And, I suspect future years, there'll be much more flexibility to be able to meet the requests and considerations of all of our community members.
Sorry, one last question. The end of June, there's the elementary, the half days. Then it looks like is Thursday a full day then for them? So they go 2 half days and then a full day?
They're done after the half days. Elementary.
They're moving up. and-
Okay, I just wanted, because it says regions testing, I'm just trying to understand.
Because they
They're,
have
they're
one,
done after the half days are, elementary is done.
Yes.
So, but obviously in high school, they may have to be in for testing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, just a couple quick updates from us. Just to, I know I've mentioned this to the board in our memos, but there is, this year, basically as a surprise, the New York State budget, when it was approved in mid-April, basically doubled our grant to $710,000 for UPK, contingent on offering a full-day program in the district. So the benefits to child development are really endless when it comes to full-day pre-K. Not only are we talking about kindergarten preparedness, but their chance of graduating is higher, their chance of workplace development is higher, going to college is higher, less discipline issues throughout their schooling. And so it just, the list goes on and on. So the principals have been meeting over the past 2 weeks to discuss the pre-K program. Our goal is over the next 3 years to house it here at Sweet Home and make it a Sweet Home program. And right now, we're still under consideration. We've had a lot of discussions with our teachers, with the administrators about offering a hybrid as we make the transition to full-day pre-K. So those plans are still in development, and we're working through with all the constituency groups and stakeholder groups to make it work. But we're looking, we met with Four Seasons as well, and they are on board to discuss this hybrid model. Obviously, in the district, we have spacing issues. We're still wrestling with COVID and spacing as well. So we are looking to add 4 rooms. Where those are going to be are still up for discussion with the principals. But, you know, we're moving forward on those plans and very excited about the fact that we can offer this service to our 4-year-olds. Just an update on where we are with Glendale. Next week, as you know, we've stayed on our timeline for this. Next week, May 10th, we will have a candidate for the board to meet in executive session and to ask any questions of there. It will be our recommended finalist at that point. And then, of course, the board can offer feedback to us and see, but we're very excited about the search. It was multiple rounds, including a screening of 27 applicants. 13 candidates were screened. 7 moved on to a committee that included stakeholder groups. And then 2 candidates moved on to a visit at Glendale in front of other stakeholder groups as well. On April 28th, the finalists then yesterday interviewed with our cabinet. And they also interviewed with central office staff. And like I said, we'll have a candidate to present to you next week for our recommendation to you.
So great, big pool.
Very, very, so these 3 searches, we are very encouraged by the quality of our candidates. Not only are they experienced, but I think they fit the mold of the Sweet Home way. And we're very excited of where we're going with our admin cabinet. So yeah, it's good times for sure. Our Director of Human Resources search, we had 18 applicants, 10 candidates were screened, 7 went in front of a committee. There was a finalist interview with COS and with the cabinet as well yesterday. And again, same procedure. We would like to bring this candidate to you next week in executive. You can ask questions and then and vet the candidate that way. And then we would like to make that recommendation of that candidate for the board for vote that night. Then finally, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction position, we had 34 applicants. 14 candidates were screened. Were screened on April 25th. 6 candidates went to the committee today. Again, we had all stakeholder groups represented, from parents to service to teachers to administrators, central office staff as well. We brought that list down to 3 today that we all agreed upon.
Those three will make a presentation in front of the DEI committee, a short presentation in front of the DEI committee. Then we would like the finalists to interview with COS and cabinet, and then interview with the board as well. So we plan on having that search wrapped up by the June voting session. Mrs. Jason mentioned Northwest Amherst Community Center. We made the announcement on April 20th of the opening of the NWACC. We've had a advisory committee meeting of a small advisory group. We're trying to establish a governing structure as we speak. And so the preliminary thought is to have 25 members of the community. Sweet Home would have 5 of those seats, and I would have one myself. So we're going to, and then there's a community advisory as well. So that's still being hammered out. But in the meantime, on May 14th, from 10 a.m. to noon, that's Saturday, May 14th, there will be an open house at 220 North Point. There will be community tables set up for people to come in, grab information, and then we need your feedback. People are going to see a very empty building when they come into that day. And that's going to be exciting because then we want to hear their ideas, and there will be volunteers set up, courtesy of the town of Amherst, that will take feedback from anybody who attends open house. There will be, I think, the Amherst Police Department is cooking hot dogs that day. There will be students on hand to offer tours. I think we're about ready to finalize and approve Don pushed it off on the Amherst Police Department this time. And there will be students on hand to offer tours of the facility. So there will also be on May 16th, Monday night, from 6 to 8 p.m. as well, same event. So there are 2 open house to grab feedback from the community on what they would like to see at the new center.
Mr. Genestri, you said you'll have one of the 5 seats, or you'll have a seat and there will also be 5.
I think right now it's one of the 5. No, I'm sorry. Sweet Home will have 5. I have 1.
Okay.
So it's
So
5
6
plus
total.
me.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Tony heading up this?
Tony is right now heading up the group, and I think he's, I don't want to speak for him, but he looks like he'll be leading this new governance structure. So Mr. Day is staying heavily involved in this, which is exciting because I know he started it with
From the
you
beginning,
six
yes.
years ago. Yep. And then just a reminder to everybody that Friday night is our Friday Night Lights event, our girls flag football team, which I think they won by about 40 points last week. They will be on for their first inaugural home game, 7:30. Prior to that, there will be a community night. There will be bounce houses for the kids, food trucks, hot dogs again, and so and just a couple other. There's a tennis match at 4 o'clock. There's a varsity softball at 5 o'clock versus Williamsville South. And then on Saturday, don't forget, there's girls lacrosse and varsity baseball as well. And one more important note, on May 5th at 12:30 p.m., that's Thursday, in our gym, our unified basketball team will kick off the athletic events for the weekend. So the public is invited to attend. The students will be there from the high school to cheer on our unified basketball team. And they are playing Cheektowaga that day in the main gym. So very exciting weekend ahead.
Mr.
Sure.
Genestri,
Yes.
I know that this week culminates with a student dance at the high school.
Yes.
Is there going to be more information sent out regarding such an event?
Yes.
Because it's
Believe so.
not on this.
Um,
There's been some confusion as to what time it starts, tickets, all of that.
Okay.
I was going to mention it to Roman when he was speaking. I was
Okay.
hoping he was going to give me all the information that I needed, but he's not
Yeah.
here, so.
We'll make sure we get that out tomorrow.
I see a head shaking at the back. So
Thank you.
Is the unified game going to be streamed?
Oh,
Please say yes.
we will
I
try and
think
make that work.
Marissa was going to try and do that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Roman had alluded to that early on because
he
they
wasn't sure if
can't
everybody
fit
could
everybody
fit in the-
Yeah,
yes.
it's going to be a full house.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
so I thought they were working on that.
Yeah, I think so. And then just to make an announcement, the students have voted, and they have voted to have graduation at the University of Buffalo back in the Performing Arts Center. So it was about a 60-40 vote. And so, the event location has been reserved, and it will be at the University of Buffalo that night. Any questions?
That's an evening.
6
Graduation?
o'clock. 6 o'clock,
We get there at 5, like 5:30 to get
settled in.
settled in.
Sounds good.
Anybody else? All right. so-
Thank you, everybody.
So lots of upcoming events, and I see concert season has started. So lots of good concerts. Again, the budget vote, open house. So this takes us to new business that we'll be voting on next week. So first off is class placement, special education. I will admit there were 187 pages. I did not get through all of them, but I will have them done by next week, promise. Next week, we'll get it for our new monthly financial reports. C is all our different bids, our health medical bids. Any questions? 2 is our athletic and physical education supply bid. 3 is our roof maintenance and repair. Can you just tell me what that, which?
It's for all
All
of
of
our
them?
roofs. Yep. You know, generally, as the new roofs come on, particularly at Heritage and Dexter Terrace, those will be under warranty. Some of our roofs are fallen out of warranty, and those are just for general repairs.
Okay, great, thank you.
I got a quick question. If we end up in a situation where like we had at the middle school a handful of years ago, where it got damaged by
Ice.
the ice, yeah,
Yep.
would this company still do the repairs and then we go back to the insurance company for the back end of it? Okay, thanks.
Correct. And Mrs. Jason, I have confirmation that the unified game will be streamed.
Yeah,
Awesome.
good, good. Next is football helmet and shoulder pad reconditioning. Questions? D is school district calendars, which include district attendance, district payroll, and district holiday.
Oh,
E-
oh,
Go ahead.
nope, never mind. It was, there was a typo in the old docs, but it was
It was
fixed.
changed in
Yeah.
the new, yes.
So never mind.
E is our revised policy second reading of 1410. Any questions on those? F is Erie One BOCES budget correction. What are we corrected from?
They gave us the wrong number.
Right.
For administrative budget.
Got it.
You
Okay.
voted on a different number last month.
Last month.
That's
so
just a
this is the new.
correction.
Okay.
Has
thank you.
nothing to do with our budget. It's a.
Right,
BOCES
it's
budget.
BOCES, right.
Okay, actually, I was looking at the wrong document. Juneteenth is not on the school district's holiday separate sheet, just so you know.
Oh, in the payroll calendar.
On the school holiday calendar, probably.
Yeah, you did have Juneteenth.
It was in the
highlighted.
presentation. It's just the one titled,
Oh, the Sherry. made it.
Sherry's.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
We can correct that. Thank you for catching that.
holiday observances, I think was the title.
Thank you, Kaylee. G is disposal of obsolete property. Is this from the kitchen?
Yes. I don't remember what was on there. Do you remember what was on
I don't
there?
remember.
It was a
what
floor sucker.
It was a.
And I was like, is
Sucker,
is
that's
that not a
That was a
vacuum?
great
stuff
name.
that was in the basement.
Basement, yeah.
The stuff that was in the basement
See,
of
we
the high
tell
school.
jokes.
Oh, okay.
So it's stuff
Good
that's not been used for a long period of time.
Okay.
And probably broken.
Before
All right,
vacuum.
We did some spring cleaning.
H is our agreement with the town of Amherst, I guess declaring you as a authorized executive to execute intergovernmental,
Yep.
yes,
The fuel.
okay, for the fuel.
Yep.
And I is our annual district vote, policy 1611, inspectors of election. We're taking Lorraine out, putting Karen in.
Yep.
There you go. Anybody have any questions with any of this? We'll vote on it next week. Next, that takes us to informational items. Peter?
Okay, so I was part of one of the groups that interviewed the 2 finalists at Glendale. 2 very worthy candidates. I do not envy you We're having to make a decision. I don't think we could go wrong with either pick.
Great, thank you.
Also, I was chosen as one of the teachers from Erie One BOCES to be on the superintendent's interview committee on June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So I will have a little bit of a say in the new superintendent for our Erie One BOCES. And then the last thing, I wanted to congratulate all winter athletes. The names were just way too many, but anyone who received all ECIC, Western New York State, and Scholar Athlete Awards for the winter, and also to Sweet Home Volleyball and Sally Cuss, our former coach, who I think this was just announced yesterday, that the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame is naming them as their 2022 Team of Distinction.
Yay.
So congratulations to all of them.
Thank you, Peter. Scott?
Couple of other things, Safety Committee meeting today, this afternoon. We talked about a number of things. Our Officer Awald said we are returned to our pre-COVID drills, and 4 have been done in all the buildings except 1, and that's going to be finished tomorrow. And Don talked a little bit about the capital project and the transportation area basically being done, kitchen getting started, and the roof was almost done at Heritage Heights, and that was pretty much my notes on that. I also had the the Alumni Board meeting yesterday. I struggled to take notes because I was driving and it makes it a little bit tougher. And listening, I didn't. So this is from memory, but anyway, the Wall of Fame ceremony where they're inducting 2 people is on Friday the 13th. The entire board is invited if you'd like to come, but please drop a note to Mrs. LeBrake and let her know. They're doing a mailing for, I guess it's 5-year intervals. Am I correct on that, Don? 'Cause I think you're involved in it. And I know it showed up at everybody's houses in the last day or 2. And they will be having a table at the homecoming event. And they're looking for details of any class reunions, if you know any that they don't already have published on their social media. And they do have social media, and they're looking for people to stay involved with that. I don't have the note on here, but I know we had a legislative team meeting for Erie County Association of School Boards. We went over a lot of different things. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough people for a quorum. We were 1 district short, so we couldn't vote on anything, but it was just, we finished up a lot of the stuff from the year, talked about some of the ongoing things that are there and for things that we might have to look at next year for, following up on a few of the things. And that was one of the important parts, was things that didn't get through the budget this year that we were pushing. Just about everything did, but there still was a handful, and we want to follow up on those over the summer to make sure that they don't forget about them. And then again, once they start session, get right back into the same items again. So we're going to be getting some more information out about that. And that would be it for me.
Just want to say thank you to your year of advocating with all our different representatives. You have just done a yeoman's job talking and trying to get our message out. So thank you.
Thanks.
Kaylee?
Sure. I was also at the legislative meeting. It was a really nice meeting. I just really enjoyed it. I don't know why, but I wanted to mention that there is a bill up. I don't believe it has a sponsor in the Senate that makes it a crime to harass sports officials, which I think is pretty cool. And then I also wanted to mention November 19th is going to be the legislative breakfast. They're also talking about doing a legislative dinner next year. I believe we usually have 2 spots. We've got a lot of people from Sweet Home on this committee because Mr. Johnson is the co-chair. But if anyone is super interested in attending, Josh and myself I'm the alternate. Josh is the representative, but if anybody really wants to go, let me know.
And just kind of throw in that the dinner, the point of that would be kind of reverse of the breakfast where we ask them questions. It'd be a chance for them to talk about what they did over the course of the year and how it fit into the things we were looking at.
And I have to say, I attended the breakfast for the first time in the fall, and it was really wonderful. I learned so much. I think Peter was there. I also had a question. I think it was Williamsville mentioned that they got an extra bit of money for their teacher center. And I wasn't sure what that program was, or if it was something that we might be interested in looking into. But I just would like to hear more about that, and that there's apparently some generous state aid for that, according to Williamsville. Somebody also mentioned a community forum for the board. I don't remember, I stopped writing down names of districts at the end because it was a long meeting. But they mentioned a community forum where the board offered breakfast, where they got to talk with just constituents, parents, community members. And we had such nice participation. You guys are really sticking it out
Yeah,
too.
give you credit.
So I thought that might be something for us to consider. And then I wish Roman was here. Somebody mentioned a senior junior mentoring program where the seniors mentor the juniors through college application processes, which I thought was such a great idea. Maybe we have something similar to that. And then lastly, ECASB is thinking of hosting an inter-school gathering of student reps. And I'm so excited because I brought up how our student reps wanted to get more involved in the actual advocacy part, and they're really, it's kind of taking off. So I'm really looking forward to see if anything comes of that. Then I also attended the DEI committee meeting last week. We are on to our mission and vision statement, which is super exciting. After that, the fun can start. And they will be here in June to present to us where we stand.
Do you take off during the summer then? Or do you still have meetings in the summer for DEI?
I would suspect that our subgroups might start to gear summer.
Good.
Never take a day off.
Good cause.
And that's all I got.
Great, thank you, Kaylee. Josh?
Sure. Thanks, Kaylee, for attending the legislative team meeting and briefing that out. I was out of town. So two things that I was able to attend this last week is Chef had their board meeting, their monthly board meeting. I won't go into all the details, but they have a lot of irons in the fire and they're gaining momentum on a lot of the initiatives that they have. So there's quite a bit of conversation about how to resource and staff some of these. And there's some talk about reaching out to PTAs and getting outside of the circle of folks who are directly involved. And I think it's a great idea. I actually was able to bring it up, and that gets to my second point. I was at the Maplemere PTA meeting, which is a good meeting. Marianne and Jessica were both there, and they were able to say a few words. But they're also their fundraising has been outstanding this year. I mean, they're in the several thousands per event. So it seems like folks are eager to get back involved, and the PTAs are reaping the benefits of that interest. So. And they got a full slate of activities. They just finished up the sock hop. They have they're not their turkey trot, obviously. It's their another fun run, I think is what they're calling it. And just a whole slew of activities leading all the way through the 5th grade moving up day, which I understand we're all doing at the high school now. Yep. That's it.
Okay, great, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, two things. One is I did attend the community center ribbon cutting, and I just want to mention Marianne and Mr. Genestri. I think you did a great job. Spoke a little bit and representing Sweet Home as well as the students that we had there. So it was nice.
Stole the show, though. It was all about them with their ribbon cutting, and it was just great to see all those kids there.
Yeah, it was a nice event, and they also I saw there was an article and a picture. I saw it in the Amherst Bee. I'm not sure if there was one in the Buffalo News, but it was nice that we got coverage there, and it was just a nice event. The other thing I just want to mention with being Teacher Appreciation Week, and I know we all do with everything the teachers do, but also the PTOs and the PTAs and all the work that they're doing, because I have seen with Willow Ridge, it's multiple events in some cases, and every day in different things they're doing. So there's a lot of work being put on by those groups to recognize the teachers, and so I just also want to recognize them for all their hard work to go ahead and do that, because it's a lot of effort and volunteer work done by them.
Thank you, Brian. Amy?
Just a couple quick things. I've attended a good handful of our athletics in the spring season. Everybody is rolling in full force. It's been exciting on a lot of different levels, but it's been really great to see them out there. The first full spring season in 3 years, maybe. So that's been really great. just a real quick thank you to all of our teachers and nurses.
Next week, Nurses Week.
In May,
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so no thanks, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
to everybody in our districts, that work with our kids and our students, and, teachers are more than the instructor at the front of the class. We're all teachers in some way, shape, or form, but if you are working in a school building in any capacity, thank you for your service.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right, I just have a couple things. Scott mentioned the health and safety meeting that we were both at. Joanne, a special thank you to you. You really do a great job guiding that group, keeping us in with our time constraints, but really offering guidance to that group. They were talking about the threat assessment with Don Shomat, and the staff commenting that they were so appreciative of being included in that, which I thought spoke volumes. Couple things, they did say the asbestos work had already been filed with the state and we were okay. They're gonna work on the summer with our water lead situation or whatever needed to be updated with that. The district safety plan had no changes. Let's see, they have to beef up our internet bullying, cyber bullying, right? For our policies, okay, on personal devices, and they'll be presenting in June for that. We already mentioned the Northwest Amherst Community Center. The last thing I want to mention, I eat chicken and fish. But on our meat raffle with Don Feldman, I had a piece of meat hanging around my neck, which that was so successful. Don, how'd you do?
We made about $8,600.
Yay. and
I
it's
had
all-
so much fun. I have never been to a
That was
meat
my
raffle
first time,
before. It was
first
my
time.
first time. I also don't really eat a whole lot of meat, but my family does. They got away pretty good. But you guys were just running all over the place.
You were a seller, so you guys
It
were
was-
really running.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Really,
Did you
really
want
well
anything,
done.
Kaylee?
I want a gift card to LL Bean, which I'm
Okay.
very
How
excited
about
about.
you? Any meat?
I won a gigantic pork tenderloin.
Okay.
Yes,
And I
gigantic.
still can't understand the draw of the pizza logs. People go nuts.
There was
over
an
the pizza
audible
logs.
groan in the whole room when somebody else won. Everyone was so angry.
They were just so excited
It's
about
not
these.
that many.
pizza-
It's
No,
2 boxes
No,
of
it's
pizza.
2 boxes, but
How do you not understand?
I don't get pizza logs. I don't know. Anyway, Don, congratulations. It was a job well done.
Thank you.
All right, next is our second open session. Before I read this, anybody want to be takers? Okay, let me read. All right, as per Board Policy 1512, we hold 2 open sessions at each meeting. This second session may be used to address board on topics appropriate for open session, not necessarily addressing our agenda items. The board welcomes attendance and participation by district residents, people having business within the boundaries of the school district, and people who do business with the Board of Education. Speakers must be at least 16 years of age and will be limited to 3 minutes. Please preface your comments with your name, address, group affiliation if appropriate. Non-district residents must include their name of their business or how they do business with the Board of Education. No, that's okay. It's okay.
Jessica Stevens, 855 Edgewater. I just wanted to say on behalf of the Little Ring, we have 2 big events coming up, and we're really kind of excited for it. We have multicultural night coming up on May 27th, and we also have science night on May 20th, which is the same day as our leadership day. So if anybody wants to stop by for multicultural night or science night, definitely.
Can you send us each those dates, just because I don't see them on our upcoming events, just so we have them?
Right. We kind of up in the air. We were going to do it. So, yeah, I'll send more.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jody Roberts again, 139 Jeffrey Drive. I'm going to read this just because I want to make sure I get all my thoughts where I want them. So I have 2 children in the Sweet Home District. My son is attending 6th grade at the middle school, and my daughter is attending 3rd grade at Heritage. I first want to say that I appreciate the time and effort you have all put in the district and the community. I want to take this time to discuss the transition back to our new normal. I understand that legally we must follow the regulations set by the federal, state, and local governments, and I am not here to question those regulations or guidelines. I do want to begin the discussion around lunch for our elementary kiddos. Parents were recently made aware that there were some discussions in-house that the elementary children may benefit from staying in their classrooms during lunch, resulting in lunchrooms being permanently not used for the next school year and on. I have spoken to both Mr. Swirl and Mr. Genestri, thank you for your time, about my concerns and the concerns of numerous parents and children that I've spoken to. It was communicated to me by Mr. Smorl that evidence shows children are stressed and have more conflict in two areas, the bus and the lunchroom. And that the elementary schools have noticed a decrease in behaviors without the lunchroom. As a mother first, but also as a social worker and therapist, I have many concerns. First, I think it is not appropriate or beneficial to keep kids in the classrooms as a way to manage behaviors. Second, our children need the ability to move around, to see their peers, friends, and other staff outside the classroom group. They need the ability to learn social skills, including conflict resolution and distress tolerance. Third, most parents and children that I've spoken to are often using their tablets and watching movies in their classrooms during lunch. Our children need a break from these screens and the electronics. It was also communicated to me that the children are happier than ever, as evidenced by Mr. Squirrel not hearing any complaints or any situations within the building. And I do not take children's silence as happiness. I think that we need to do better than that. I believe that there needs to be better communication around the decision. It is not presented to parents, but rather found out by the whispers of staff and parents in the building. That's the only way that this was kind of brought to us. And I think I had talked to Mr. Genestri about that was quite disappointing for me, given the amount of communication that this board and this district has done given COVID. You guys have done tremendous in making sure that we've all been informed. So I think we were all really taken back, me and a group of parents, when we found out that that these meetings were being held within a small group of people. I think the decision should not be made by that small group, but rather a large discussion with parents, students, the board, administrators, staff, the lunchroom. Yes, I think that was it in my list. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that, since we were just now hearing it and it wasn't really presented to any PTAs that I'm aware of, or PTOs. And so I just wanted it out there for the board to.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
information. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, that takes us next to personnel, teaching and administrative, and service. Any questions? We adjourn to executive. All right, any questions? So no, next I need a motion to adjourn to executive session for three things: negotiations, employee situation, and a student situation.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That- 7-0. Thank you. And thank you.
Not
Go ahead.
returning.
And we are not returning to do any voting. And thank you all for sticking it